Savarkar ji was not just a revolutionary, he was also a visionary. मी नित्य पाहिला होता भूमा. This literally means कि मैंने तुझे भारत माँ के चरण धोते हुए बहुत बार देखा था. So in dialogue we brought the entire part.
Sir, I literally got goosebumps while hearing to all of this.
Hindutva, it's a sangya. Deva Devatva, Hindu, Hindutva. But then as I grew up I realized that no, the word Hindutva is seen very differently. And Randeep rapidly started losing weight. For a month and a half, Randeep Huda used to have a date, khajur and a glass of milk and fast the remaining time. Only half the theatre is full, but every second line they're clapping, laughing and all those things are happening. Yeah, 1919, Jallianwala Bagh, General Dyer gave an instruction and people were killed. Fact. But the truth is it was Jallianwala Bagh massacre. Mr. Vivek Agnihotri ji, he tweeted that it's important to watch this film. In Marathi section, Supriya Pilgaonkar ji, wife of Sachin Pilgaonkar, wrote an amazing Insta post with, I loved the ending. She said, do you dare to watch the film?
A very warm welcome to all the viewers of JK Now. I am Soumya Jain, and as you all know, we keep inviting special guests for our special series of topics. Today we have with us a very special guest, Mr. Utkarsh Naithani, whose latest claim to fame is the Hindi biopic Swatantrya Veer Savarkar. His contribution has been showcased in 3 different areas as a story writer, dialogue writer and a screenplay writer. Sir, please tell us something about your journey of writing Savarkar.
Yeah. Hello Soumya, it's like hello to everyone. Swatantrya Veer Savarkar, it's a very special film. It's a special film because the way the content has happened in today's world, we are living in a world of narratives where the media, the news, the entertainment media, everything is having an impact on how the youth of India thinks. Now, when we got into this project, we were very much aware that we are battling an existing narrative of almost exactly a century, where, you know, it is because now it's 2024. Exactly 100 years ago, he had come out of Ratnagiri prison. Right. So, the narrative was to make him look like, for lack of a better word, I would say, a loser. It's a narrative that we had seen. There are words that we hear, Maafi Veer, bootlicker, pension, all these kind of things. So, like how Randeep also nicely puts it in many of the times when we are talking, that when people say, then why Savarkar? So he says, why not Savarkar? So we came into that zone that, okay, we are very aware of this, that we are not going to get caught up into anti and pro. Here's a movie telling the story of the man. I remember explaining this to the producers when we began the project, that the story that I'm writing, before we come into screenplay or dialogues, the story I'm creating is basically the story of a hero who could have been and should have been. Because here was a man whose legacy was not allowed to be known. That's why the byline or the hashtag of the movie is "Who Killed His Story." So now with that intention, that idea, we entered the entire journey. While writing, of course, the most important aspect becomes research. So, in fact, almost for a year, I did not get into the details of the scripts or things like that. I was just reading and reading and reading. Reading in English, reading in Hindi, and because I'm fortunate enough to read and understand Marathi, I read Shri Savarkar's literature in his language, so as to avoid any lost in translation scenarios. And he has written prolifically, like amazing writer. So I read his literature in Marathi. I read everything that is written pro Savarkar or anti Savarkar. There were some books that we really focused on. I mean, I could name a few. For example, Vikram Sampath's 2 books that he's written. I always tell anyone who wants to read it, and they ask me that, if you want to read Savarkar, whom should we read and all, and I say, if you want to read in English especially, blind buy. Go read Vikram Savarkar's 2 books. Echoes of the Forgotten Past, that's the first part, and the second volume of The Contested Legacy. Now, these 2 books, he has done such a great job of telling the story in an unbiased way that they're very useful. Then there was the book on the Savarkar, the father of Hindutva, from Mr. Vaibhav Purandare. Again, a book that helped in a big way. And then there was an entire literature of Sri Savarkar. Specifically his book on transportation for life, where he is talking about how the entire Kala Pani journey, he has written about it himself. Then reading about what others wrote about him. As a student, I was pleasantly surprised, and those who've seen the film will see we've actually brought that into the thing. We have been taught that Savarkar and Gandhi hated each other. But that wasn't really the case. The more I studied, every written word, I only saw a proper respect about each other. Gandhiji was very keen that Savarkarji would or should join Congress once he came out of the jail. And as we have a line in the movie when Nathuram Godse questions Savarkar that why don't you hate Mahatma Gandhi? And Savarkar says, I don't hate Gandhi, I hate non-violence. It was an ideological difference, not a personal vendetta. So, while writing the story itself, it became important that these aspects are touched. But more than anything else, Soumya, as a writer, my focus and Randeep's focus, we were completely focused on a single part, that we are not trying to glorify or criticize a single person. We are trying to make everyone realize that even he was a human being. This is his journey, what he went through, and what it could have been. We went with that perspective. Then came the screenplay, because you're talking about the journey of how we came into that. I remember Arvind Krishnan, the AK, as we call him, the DOP, sitting with Randeep and myself and asking that, okay, fine, so aap logon ke man mein kya hai? What is the palette? What is the visual that you have in mind? What's your reference? And he was probably expecting us, at best, go to Richard Attenborough's Gandhi or say something else. Or and both of us unanimously said, it's like Peaky Blinders. And like, what? That's like a Netflix show of gangsters, and like, no, look at the look and feel of that show. We are not talking about people who are saying that, the way they've been portrayed in a very certain way, that, oh, okay, Vande Mataram, and everything is either Ahimsa Paramo Dharma, people getting beaten up by British, or then it becomes about people who are saying that, okay, we will die for motherland and all. But we never get into their lives. What was their thought process? How did they reach where they reached? If Madan Lal Dhingra, if he killed Curzon Wily, and then, like, he, with pride, like, he was hanged. When he was hanged, he went saying Vande Mataram. No, what made him like that? What was his journey? What were these people like? And that's what we focused a lot on screenplay. That when we are showing his younger years, we are talking about making of a hero. When we are talking about his years in London in India House, with Shyamji Verma and Madam Kama and everything. So this becomes for me like I was just saying, if you look at, say, the Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy, so there's Batman Begins, there's Dark Knight, there's Dark Knight Returns. So I would say, like, we screenplay-wise, visually, this Batman Begins. We're talking about how this man grew in that direction. We went to the direction of Dark Knight, where he faced all as a revolutionary, what he faced, where he went, and then Dark Knight Returns, when Bane came and all that happened, how towards the end he was able to be a social reformer. So we actually went for 3 different looks. the transformation, the journey, and then when it came to dialogues, full credit to Randeep Hooda for giving me so much of space to write, because initially the way he looked at it as a director, as a filmmaker, very often his way of looking at dialogues was a little different, like, you know, and we used to have a lot of discussions about this. So he felt maybe and I was explaining to him why some lines need to be colorful, why some lines need to be spoken in a certain way. And initially we disagreed, but then we agreed, and so literally we used to sometimes write dialogues, read to him, discuss about it, and then complete. And then finally, the final about 30 drafts later, the entire script was ready. So that was the journey of making the script a reality.
Since you mentioned about Randeep sir, so could you please share with our audience how was your experience working with him?
Oh, that's a long one. Randeep is like my elder brother. Although if we stand together, he looks younger to me, because that's the beauty of his fitness and his eternal youth. We tease him, vampire hai kuch wo. Because you'll see, like, you know, his earlier movies, like, you know, he still looks the same and he transforms himself, like India's Christian Bale, as we say. Working with him was a magnificent journey. You know, there are, this is how I describe him. There are, you know, I will say this, there are two ways of running a race. You know, when you start running, you are sometimes told that, okay, this is a marathon. Okay, like 1,000 meters or maybe more, or sometimes you're told, okay, this is a sprint, 100 meter, 200 meter. You learn how to run. There you're told there's a marathon and there's a sprint. There's a marathon which is like 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer, like, you know, 21. There's a sprint, 100 meter, 200 meters. And when you learn, you are told that both of these styles of running have a different approach. When you are running a marathon, you always remember that when you start, you conserve energy. You focus on maintaining a rhythm. And only in the last lap, you give everything and you finish it. And then there's a sprint, when Usain Bolt does not think conservation of energy. When he takes his first step and he takes his last step, he goes all out 100%. Running a marathon like a sprint is foolhardy. Running a sprint like a marathon is useless. I also used to think like this, and then I met Randeep Hooda, because here's a man who runs a marathon like a sprint, and then I saw him in these 2 years after he got involved that he ran the entire marathon like a sprint and he finished the race. He never held back. He was all in right from the beginning. It was a marathon, but he wasn't thinking of conserving any energy. Everything was in it. I literally saw him shrink in front of my eyes, because while we were sitting in script meetings, he had started also losing weight, getting into that zone. And sometimes what we did is that, as the viewers would know, that even the film shooting happens in parts. So what we had done is that we will shoot in a linear manner. By that I mean we first shot the pre-cellular jail part, because that is when Savarkar was a fit man. So since you've seen the movie, and for those members of the audience who've seen the film, so what happens is that initial part he's muscular in a certain way. And then as that schedule ended, we shot what had to be shot for the London parts and all. Now there was a break while edit and all were being looked at and other shots were being done of other people, second unit, and Randeep rapidly started losing weight. For a month and a half, Randeep Hooda used to have a date, khajur, and a glass of milk, and fast the remaining time. And you know, he's done this before in Sarabjit. But in Sarabjit, he was just, he was, I won't say just, but he was the actor. Which means when he was not acting, he could rest at home, because there's no energy inside his body, right? Because he is so carb depleted, protein depleted, completely depleted. And he's losing fat, that's why you can see his ribs and all. But in this movie, he was not only acting, but he was sitting with me for all our meetings when we were discussing scripts, approving scenes, disapproving scenes, giving me input. And let's not forget, he was directing. So, you know, in English there's a word called hangry. So we used to tease him, hangry young man, hungry and angry. And we used to sometimes request him that please don't lose your cool, you'll fire people. But it's actually, you think you're angry, but you're just hangry. But he did an amazing job. In front of my eyes, I saw him lose weight. In fact, I was just sharing this recently, like around that point in time, I also lost 16 kgs. But that is because I used to feel guilty while eating in front of him. So when we used to spend all the time together, and he would say, "Acha brother, tu pizza kha le." Then how can you eat at that time? So even I would end up skipping. But the glory, the beauty of the man is that just the way he kept at it. It's so easy to give up. It's so easy to give in. Not only maintaining the diet, but at the same time getting no rest. Every day having edits, discussions, meetings. And imagine when cellular jail portion was being shot, when a man he's a 6-footer, his regular weight is in mid-80s, 85, 86, okay? During cellular jail time, he went all the way to 60 and below. And he was directing. This was when we were worried about his health. I remember his father speaking about it, his mother saying ki, you know, it could be fatal. His doctor was in touch, because in that low weight, he was not just acting, but the entire cellular jail part, some part of it was shot at Andaman. Some parts we came to Mumbai and we created some parts and we did that. And he was not just, so he was acting, then going behind the camera, then looking from there how it's looking. When others are acting, if David Barry is sitting, now he's the director. So he's involved in that, he's giving them instructions. It's a miracle that he did this, and hats off to the man. And this is like there's this thing in Hindi, it's like, jitni tareef ki jaye kam hai. He deserves all the accolade he gets. And quoting Miss Shefali, like in unhone said Twitter pe kaha, she said an X now. She said if Randeep Hooda does not get a national award for this, then I will lose faith in national award. So I can join her in this kind of way of thinking. What a man! And while working with him, I mean, what a journey! Even when we were creating the script.
I literally got goosebumps while listening to all this. So it is actually immense.
I want to add one more thing here, actually.
Yeah.
With goosebumps, I remembered. Thank you for saying that. I'll tell you an incident while narrating a scene to him, and when he disagreed, I got goosebumps. I'll tell you what happened. So not many people would know, but because in the second half of the movie, post-cellular jail, and even before that, so Savarkar has that famous hat, the topi jo pehante the.
Right.
The Maharashtrian topi then. So, and that he wore when he was in Ferguson College. He stopped wearing when he was in London. And then post-cellular jail, when he came back to and lived in Ratnagiri, he started wearing that again. And he had those spectacles. As an actor, he never wanted to come across as if it was awkward or acting. So keeping this in mind, for almost 6 months before the shooting started, he got his topi made, he got his specs made, and even in his house, throughout the day, unless he was having a meeting outside the house, Randeep Hooda would be wearing the topi and chashma inside the house. For about 6 months he did this, so that it became a part of his way of thinking. So that if he removed specs, he felt uncomfortable. And I don't want to mess it for people who haven't seen, but you have seen the movie. So you know what I'm talking about, that entire part, that if the specs were not there, so him feeling that, oh, I'm feeling uncomfortable, to get used to that. So there was an incident when we were, and we used to argue a lot. Like even he has said it in his interviews that me and Utkarsh used to fight like cats and dogs. So, and then we used to call it fencing, because myself, like I would say many other writers, I function best when I'm left alone to my device and I will just think and write and all. Now Randeep is a very dynamic person, even when he's thinking, because he's an actor first and then anything else. So he's very dynamic. So if it was about a script discussion, it would still be like, you know, I realized that the best of Randeep would come out if we debated, if we argued. And on one incident, we were arguing, and we were just saying like, no, what will he talk about? How will he speak? It was a David Barry and his conversation and Savarkar's conversation, and we disagreed because I saw something in a certain way and he saw in a different way. So he was that day wearing a short white kurta and shorts, like like half pant type, and he was sitting on the ground. He used to sit on the ground, not on a chair, again to get used to that thing. So I was sitting, my laptop on my lap, the way I'm sitting today, like this is how I sit normally also. So I was sitting with my laptop and he was on the ground and we started arguing. So tempers rose, voices rose. And at one point of time, he was so angry that he just started talking to me. No, Utkarsh, we cannot be like this, and we have to think like this. And suddenly, I got goosebumps. I just kept staring at him. This is not scientific, but in that moment, for a moment, I had to ask myself, am I talking to Randeep Hooda or is this really Savarkar? Because he looked possessed. He was like, he hadn't eaten for a day and a half. He was fasting, doing longer fasts. And he was just sitting there and he was arguing. His body was almost shivering. And I got goosebumps because I'm like, and then he's like, kya hua? Because he was still going. I'm like, nahi, what did you say before that? So he said, main to ye keh raha tha. So I typed exactly what he said. He's saying, kyun argue kyun nahi kar raha hai? I said, what you just said, it didn't come from you. It came through you. Something is working through you. Let it flow. I'll take it forward. So I got goosebumps because while working with him, there were times that Randeep Hooda, the Haryanvi man, he took a back seat and he became Savarkar, and which is incredible.
Sir, I literally got goosebumps while hearing to all of this. Sir, I was going through the kind of work you have done. You have done the famous book-based serial Saraswati Chandra, the TV serials based on Puran, Devon Ke Dev, Mahadev, Samrat Ashok, and having such a diverse educational background ranging from mathematics to advertising to Sanskrit language. How did you venture into this?
My then your homework and all, and you come. See, I didn't grow up wanting to be a writer. Now that I'm a writer and I have learned to say string the words in a certain way, I have learned to say a line that describes the situation best. My life makes perfect sense in hindsight. But in a linear way, it wasn't so well planned. The only thing that I held on to was, okay, what is the best that I can do right now? So yes, my graduation is in mathematics. Yours truly is a university topper, Mumbai in 2000. Then my post-graduation at that point of time was in advertising and marketing. There I met a very special man, Josie Paul, who then became my mentor in advertising. I think now he heads BBDO Asia or something. At that time, he was with Ogilvy and Mather, O&M. RMG David was the part that he was heading. And he came to teach and as a guest faculty, and I connected with him so much. I met him later and he said, why did you join me? And so I wasn't thinking of advertising, but it felt right, so I did it. So I got into advertising. Now after some years in advertising, one of our clients was Radio City. So I used to make ads for Radio City. To do a good job, I started listening to them throughout the day. And so I fell in love because it was so amazing. And I come from a family where music is a way of life. My sisters are trained musicians. I've been fortunate enough, although credit goes more to my mother, who encouraged me to be a part of music, and she insisted that I learn to play the flute and tabla and instruments that way. So music is a part of a family. But although in my childhood I would listen to the All India Radio and those parts and all, I got exposed to FM properly when Radio City was a client. I'm talking 2002, when it just came to Mumbai. And I fell in love. I loved the way the music was going and all that was happening. And the client asked me that, why don't you work for us? And then I spoke to my boss, and he was such a good boss, Josie, that he said, yeah, I think your love is that side. You leave advertising, join radio. This started my radio life. for almost a decade. I was a part of radio in various ways and all. Like, then I met Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev, and that had a different impact on me. So I traveled with him. I went to Kedarnath with him, Badri Kedar. I went to Kailash Mansarovar with him, and in that journey he suggested that why don't you come over, and we are starting a Gurukul and we have a school and you be a part of it accordingly. So at the age of 27, when normally people are going towards the peak of their profession, so I decided to quit my job, and even my family found it difficult to give me that kind of a go ahead and all. And I just left everything and I went to the ashram for about 3 years. And I came back, rejoined. I was then heading Big FM for a while, national programming director of Big FM. And there I met, so now please note, I'm telling you about in linear, it makes no sense. Okay, so advertising, radio, ashram life, doing sadhana, teaching children Hindi and mathematics, coming back doing radio again, becoming a part of Reliance Radio, being a part of everything. Now in a different capacity, I was running 45 stations under me. And then I met Mr. Sanjay Leela Bhansali. Guzarish had just been released at that point of time, and we were radio partners, so we interacted and everything like that. And at that point of time, one common person was Mr. Sandeep Singh, who was then going to be his CEO. And then the idea came that why don't you join, Sanjay ji suggested, why don't you join us and we'll do some work and all. So then I quit radio. Again, my boss understood. And I became creative director of Bhansali Productions. Now with him, for the first time, I was involved as a creative director. Please note, till now I'm not a writer. So at the age of 32, 2012, sometimes people think bachpan se likh rahe honge. No, I wasn't programming, I was writing. Yes, because advertising is also writing. Radio maybe I was writing ads, I was writing what RJs should say and everything. And what Mr. Sanjay Leela Bhansali, one particular day, he really gave a different shift to my life. We were at that point of time, this is before even Ram Leela, even before Rowdy Rathod, a movie that he produced. That was going on, and parallelly he wanted to do a show, and Saraswati Chandra was the novel that he was confused that will he make a movie or a serial, and he finally decided serial. It came in Star Plus. So I was creative director in that show, and I was working with different writers, and we were working with the best of writers in the industry who were very excited to work with Sanjay ji, but he was not liking what they were writing. And one day I remember I could see him walking around. Those who've worked with him, like they normally know, like he gets restless, he tends to starts walking, and you know something's wrong. Okay, and he could hear me explain the story, broad arc, to a writer. Okay, and then after the writer left, he said, "Tu likh." So I said, "मैं नहीं लिखता. I mean, and मुझे नहीं आता television is." And this is what he said. I quote Mr. Sanjay Leela Bhansali. He said, Utkarsh, you've written for radio, you've created content for radio. Because I said, I don't even know story from screenplay to dialogue. So he said, when you're writing anything for radio, I paraphrase, he was speaking in a mix of Gujarati and Hindi. He said, don't you realize that what you're writing, your audience cannot see, they will only hear. He said, don't you realize that what you're writing, your audience cannot see, they will only hear. I said, yes. He said, screenplay is just that. You write knowing that the director and the actor, they should be able to see it. This impacted me. And I'm like, oh my God, I never thought about it. And that is how the writing journey started. It was very difficult to, I have learned a lot from him, but it was not easy because Sanjay ji ki bhavnaएं उद्वेग से परिपूर्ण होती हैं. He's full of passion, but passion also takes different forms. So sometimes he himself laughs about it later, but he would like a script one day, next day he would hate it, but sometimes he would make some changes and things like that. But he taught me how to think big, because before that, if I was left to my devices, I would be thinking, say this scene. I'm telling you, if Sanjay ji is visualizing a scene between Soumya and Utkarsh, okay, he will not picture it in this room. He will say that there is this palace, or he will say there is this big bungalow, and there is a massive portrait of an elephant in the background, and there are chandeliers all around, and it comes natural to him. That's exactly how he thinks. So my biggest advantage was that before that I used to think interior, what we say in screenplay, with him it became exterior. So after that started the entire journey of what you refer to Devukadev Mahadev. That was a lovely mixture because I learned the art of writing, and when Mahadev came, now all the years spent in ashram and all the studies done on Shiva, Mahadev, Shiv, it all came handy because then I could put all thoughts in that. And then I became one of those few very lucky, fortunate writers on television who does not need to write Rasoda mein kaun tha, Kal muhi ghar se nikal ja, Namak zyada hai, and I still got paid and I still got respect, I still got awards by purely writing things that I enjoyed. And if you ask me how like Sanskrit happened accordingly, I wanted to learn more, so I majored in Vedanta and all. And in terms of even writing films, it's just about following instincts and going from one way to other. So in hindsight, it looks like a nice journey. Linear, it was as eccentric as I told you.
I think it is very inspirational for our viewers to know from the career point of view as well. So that was great. And so since this is your first film, and I have often observed that people tend to play safe with their initial projects, and you have taken such a controversial and challenging subject. So what motivated you to take it, as well as can you please shed light on your criteria behind selecting projects you do?
Okay, just to make it very clear that in cinema, it's not like every movie is made it in a way that writer has written the script and then it goes to the producer and all. Many films, including Swatantrya Veer Savarkar, works in reverse. The movies work in such a way that, like in this case, I'll tell you, the decision was made earlier. At that time, Anand Pandit ji was there, and Sam Khan, Sandeep Singh, these guys, they film banani hai. And Mahesh Manjrekar ji, he was a part of the film. He was going to direct it initially, and Randeep Hooda say karwayenge. So there was no script right now. So when it came to me, when I was asked, and there was no criteria as such from my side, I had only 2 requests, and one mainly, and second one was 1.5 requests, which I bought. So I said, you let me write about mercy petitions. This won't be like a propaganda film where we are only showing one side, and because there's a way of putting it. They said, okay. And I'm like, the entire part where we are saying that, where people say that, oh, he took pension. Bhatta, jo dialogue mein hum kehte hain. So I said, you will let me mention that also. So that nobody is able to say that we are hiding behind anything. We say what it is there, and they were very happy to sit like that. And so getting into this, after the initial team was made, and then the script was written. This is a second way of doing it. Otherwise, the way I look at any project or whatever I do, I ask myself that would I feel happy when I look back years later that I did this. For example, in television, I'm not good at Saas Bahu drama, and I'm not too fond of it. I do not disrespect it. I see the need for that. When I've traveled across the country, I have seen how the reality is stranger than fiction. Worse things happen inside households than what is just shown in television that way. But let's just say I'm not good at that. I realize that, I accept that, and so I stay away from it. I've never written a Saas Bahu drama per se. I just ask myself, okay, fine, what would I feel happy about in future? What would make me feel like I'm glad I did this? Swatantrya Veer Savarkar fits right into that, because here's a man that I must share this with you. When I was a child, maybe around 5-6 years old, sometimes we say that, okay, fine, how do we know about Savarkar? When did we first hear about Savarkar? Sometimes I meet youngsters and they say they heard about Savarkar when they heard about this film. I mean, ऐसा भी होता है. Some are there who have been trained to hate Savarkar. Some are there, especially in Maharashtra, who have been taught to respect Savarkar. My experience was, I was probably 6 years old around that time, and there was a black and white TV at our home at that point, 5 or 6 years old, and I remember I was sitting with my mother. It was evening time, and a song started playing, and I realized that my mother, like, it's not about getting emotional. Tears were flowing. As a 6-year-old kid, I got worried. I'm like, Ma, kya hua? Like, why and all. And she just pointed out towards the television. And I said, this song is going on and everything. So I said, what is this? So then she said, you know who this person is, what this song is about? So I said, no. So, I mean, we are Gadwali. So she was talking in Gadwali, and I'm just saying this in English. And she said, this is Veer Savarkar. She didn't even say Savarkar, she said Veer Savarkar. So I remember, some memories stay inside us. When I turned towards the television, the song that was playing, that we now know, is that the song Sagara Prana Tarmalla, which was written by Shri Savarkar, but made very famous with the composition of Pandit Hridayanand Mangeshkar and sung by the Mangeshkar sisters and him as well. That song used to come in Doordarshan. Those of you who are like more of my age rather than Soumya's age, you will know how in 80s this song used to come very often. And it wasn't just about singing. They used to put some documentary type footage also, enacted footage, but they used to put that. So I remember looking towards television. So I remember, this is inside my head even now. I was 6 years old, so we are saying about 1986 maybe, 85, 86. And I mean, I could be wrong about the exact year, but I remember when I turned towards the television, and I heard the song in Marathi, and the visual I saw was a man jumping off the ship into water, a black and white footage like that. And then she, at that point in time, told me about Savarkar ji for the first time. How he was a Swatantrya Senani, how he was mistreated, how he stayed inside cellular jail. And 6-year-old Utkarsh was completely taken by this. And later, as I grew up and I read more about him, the source, the Udgam, was always what my ma had told me. And that's why, like, what I said in the beginning about feeling bad that there is such a strong narrative against him, I used to always feel that somebody should do something about it. I grew up thinking like this. But as they say that the reality of life is that when we realize that sometimes when we are looking for somebody and we cannot find that somebody, then we need to realize that that somebody is us, that's yourself. And then when this opportunity came my way, this offer came, I was like full of gratitude to do that, and I completely went into it because I really wanted to do that. And that's how it happened. And in any of the projects that I do, it's always about with that one simple thing that Josie Paul had taught me when I was in advertising, that when you go to sleep at night or when you look back, will you feel proud that you did this or not? Do that work. That's how I've worked always and will continue to do so.
So since you have talked a lot about Savarkar ji has a very multifaceted personality. He has been a writer, poet and a revolutionary, visionary. So how did you cover such a dynamic personality in the film, ensuring that all the significant struggles and events of his life are covered with the necessary amount of emphasis?
Fantastic question. Yes, that was one of the toughest parts of the film. That I remember when I started reading, in that first year when I was reading, I was like, this should be a web series, there's too much content. And even today I'm saying, I mean, I could make 15 one-hour episodes easily and not slow. because there's so much of data. But there was a lot of clarity that we want to do cinema. We want to make a film. So, as you correctly said, Savarkarji's life is actually, he is this three person in one. So there is Vinayak Damodar Savarkar, the poet, or how I would also say the romantic dreamer. So when he was younger, he always had these aspirations, the dreamer, the way when he felt that this is how the world should be. Like we showed in the film also that even when if he was asked to get married, his only condition was that I want to be sponsored for further education.
Yeah.
And that's how it happened. And then there was a part of him that when he became a revolutionary and he realized how to do that, so then he was strategizing it. But the Kala Pani part is the part that killed the romantic dreamer in him in so many ways. And that gave birth to the third part. That was the social reformer, I would say social revolutionary also as well. That is when he decided that there's something so wrong with the world that he was the first person to create a temple called Patita Pavan, where everybody could come, no matter what caste, how you were, everybody could come. He was the first person who even gave the Hindi and Marathi titles to all the terms of English when it comes to media. Like today when we are watching a film and say we call someone like, director being called Digdarshak. Like we say director being called Digdarshak. Believe it or not, but the credit of this goes to Vinayak Savarkar, because in 30s he literally wrote down, he saw a movie, saw all the credits coming in English and was upset. And he said, why not in Hindi and Marathi? And so, like, whatever happens, like sound should be Dhwani, Nirmata, producer. So, this is all him. Now, how do we fit it into that? So, the approach that we took is that we couldn't give an entire aspect to his poetry, but we brought his poetry into fruition in different aspects of the movie. I'll give an example. Again, you have seen the film. Many of our viewers haven't, and I would request them to. But there's this part. I won't give too many details. You will understand. When he is in water, and he hears the news after that. Yeah. So he speaks that poem in Marathi. Now, in reality, that is exactly it. The beach was Brighton. That is where he had written that poem, and so we went through entire phase that how to bring this poetry into the movie. The song is very famous by the Mangeshkars, like Nema jasi ne parat matra bhumi la sagara pran talmadla sagara. He's yearning to go back in London, but he is upset with Sagar that my entire soul is reverberating and I'm in pain, let me go back. But this was composed like this by Pandit Hridaynath Mangeshkar. Savarkar had composed it in a different way. Shri Vinayak Damodar Savarkar, it has come from generation to generation, used to sing the same song, and so we had in the beginning felt that we will put this song in the movie as a poem. Like that went like Nema jasine parat matra bhumila sagara pran talmadla sagara. This is an old Maharashtrian way of singing songs. Like, they even have lullabies and songs like that. As you know, there was the death of his child involved while writing this. So he had sung it like this. But when we got into shooting it, Randeep felt very uncomfortable as a director for something soft coming like this. And that's why we said we want the poet Savarkar to be there. So what we will do is that we will make him speak. His pain should come out like that. And we will make him yell like in pain towards the Sagar. So there was no music because music was colliding with the emotion of the scene. You know which scene I'm talking about. Yeah. It was colliding with that scene. So then we took the music out and we just let him speak. Even with the same poetry and how we fit into the poetic part of Savarkar inside, even in trailers this line is there so that you know that when his wife, when Ankita Lokhande's character Yamuna Bai, when she tells Savarkar कि सागर पार मत जाइए, मुझे लग रहा है कुछ अपशकुन होता है. The reference fact from this is that in the past people used to think कि सागर पार करने से धर्म भ्रष्ट हो जाता है या सागर पार करने से अपशगुन होता है. This is a way of thinking. That's why that now you've seen the movie in Hindi. Now what Savarkar says to her is, अरे ये सागर तो भारत माता के चरण धोता है, ये पूरी दुनिया को घुमा के मुझे तुम्हारे पास वापस ले आएगा. This dialogue is not actually written by me. This is the song that I was talking about, Ne Maje Si Ne. This is a literal translation of the first stanza. It goes, Bhumatecha charanatala tuj dhuta mi nitya pahila hota. Bhuma, this literally means कि मैंने तुझे भारत माँ के चरण धोते हुए बहुत बार देखा था. So in dialogue we brought the entire part. So that it never became, we were not able to give a proper angle of the poet Savarkar, but we still fit it in. In the second half, you have seen there's this part, and for those who haven't seen, there's a part where David Barry and Vinayak Savarkar, that before, in the end, when he says that our conversation can only happen between two free men, okay? In that you'll remember David Barry says that, why do you hate British so much? Now this is a fact. He had said this, but instead of giving the from a book, from Vaibhav Purandare's book, when we had that thing that he just spoke about that, no, I don't hate British, I hate slavery, and he had spoken that much. But what we have done in the movie, he goes about saying that I don't hate the British, I hate slavery. If the British were to leave us, we could even be friends. In fact, if somebody were to attack the British Swatantrya, independence, India will come and fight for them. This is actually an extract from, I'm sharing a secret here. This is an extract from a poetry prose speech written by a 12-year-old Vinayak Savarkar. When his father, Sri Damodar Savarkar, was taken aback that he was standing on stage and he gave this speech that we should not hate British, we should be against slavery, and if British go back, tomorrow we'll defend them also. 12 saal ka ladka, 12-year-old was saying that. And the thought was so mature that even in the movie, when a grown-up Savarkar says it, it fits in perfectly. But this was another way of the poet, speaker, romantic Savarkar being brought into this angle. The revolutionary part, we have brought in a different way. But this was the only way. In fact, Z Studio very kindly themselves suggested that you can do this movie in two parts as well, because the first time I did this, it was a 3.5 hour cut. And they were like, you have to bring it under 3 hours at least. We agreed to cut scenes and cut parts because we said no, not two parts. Because Savarkar's story makes sense only when it goes in the entire arc. When you see how he was made, how he fought, and only then towards the end you can feel that pain that you would have felt while watching, that how his legacy has been forgotten. So that's why it was important to put in a cinematic way, in that way, and that is how I won't say nothing is 100%, but we did our best to look at all different aspects. Like the fighter Savarkar who wanted bombs to go to India and guns to go to India, or the reformer who tells Gandhi that make antarjati vivah karwa do, so that in 4 generations there'll be no achut, no nothing, only everybody will be Hindu. Okay, we have done our best to bring all these things into the film. It's not possible, but when something is not possible, best we can do is like, what's the best we can do? We've tried to do that.
Sir, so you mentioned that you had to fit in or cut the movie and bring it to less than 3 hours due to time constraints. So could you share some glimpses of the scenes that you had to delete it, but you wanted to keep it? So I guess this the viewers would also want to know.
Okay. some of these scenes may make it. Z Studio is saying that when the movie in future will come into in OTT, they will use some of these scenes. But now it will be difficult because to make the movie look compact, if we remove the scene, we altered the dialogues or edit to fit in a certain way. But I'll tell you a couple of scenes that we edited out quite early in the project, and I'll tell you one scene that we edited out right at the end, and it felt really, both Randeep and I were quite sad that we had to let go, but that's why it's good to talk about it. बस ये बात ही कर सकते हैं. Vinayak Savarkar was actually a person who was also claustrophobic.
Okay.
And I wanted to speak about this because it was, if I could show his claustrophobia in his younger years, that would make the audience more aware. If I could show the claustrophobia, that would make the audience more aware of his pain when he was put into that isolation in solitary confinement. Because for those who don't know, claustrophobia is a phobia of when something is completely closed around you. So there's no window, there's no way of going out. And such a man, so even in a jail with bars, you can see outside, you can see sky. But he was put in isolation where you had no exit at all. So I wanted to show that. So in his younger years, when he was still a kid, because those days people used to get married very early. So even Baba Rao was married to Yeshu Vaini very early. So he was still like a youngster, not even a teenager. And in a play, his brother had locked him inside a cupboard. And he was locked there for more than half an hour, and he got so scared. And that kind of created that phobia of closed places. And because Yeshu Vaini had taken him out, is why he used to see her, his bhabhi, as a mother. That connection was very strong. So this was there in the film, but we had to remove it because of time. And talking of Yeshu Vaini, such a beautiful and important character, but we had to take a lot of her parts out. He used to really treat her like mother. In fact, when she passed away, he wrote an amazing poem for her also. And but in the movie, what I wanted to keep earlier is that Vinayak Savarkar ji had a special relationship with aloo ki sabzi. The reason behind that is that he writes in his own autobiography that when he was a child, his mother passed away. He was very young. He says that his memory when he thinks of his mother is more of finding out that she is no longer there and sitting in Bhoj, and he remembers that he was fed aloo ki sabzi. And so he associated aloo ki sabzi with his mother. Since you've seen the film, you'll remember that's why Yeshu Vaini, when he's about to board the ship, she says aloo ki sabzi bhakri ki hui hai. So actually it was connected because in his younger years, so she used to feed him aloo ki sabzi, and because it was close to him. And at that point of time, in that earlier draft, in the solitary, when he sees that food that he has to eat of worms crawling, he actually hears his mother's voice or Yeshu Vaini's voice also about ki tere liye aloo ki sabzi banai hui hai dekh. So all this was there, but what was happening is why these scenes were removed, because they weren't small scenes then. And we all felt very strongly that in the first half we had to move faster to the main point of grown-up Savarkar taking up the arms against British. And to reach that, we had to compromise the childhood portion of that. So that's why this went. Now I'll tell you one scene that was very close to Randeep's heart and my heart as well. And this scene may make it in the digital, I don't know, but I'll tell you. There is this part when he's in Andaman. I'll tell you this much. Again, I'm referring to those who've seen it. Even if you haven't seen it, catch up in this way. So there's this part where both the brothers are caught, Baba Rao and Savarkar, and they are put in different cells. Okay, and what you've seen in the movie is that Baba Rao is beaten up by Mirza, and at the same time, Savarkar is whipped by David Barry. It happens very swiftly, so we don't think about it, but one may question that, oh, why are they getting separate punishment? He only got beaten inside the cell, whereas this one got, and it gets accepted because the scene is emotional, we skip it. But actually there was a scene between that. What happens is that Savarkar is put in a different cell, he's beaten, and he is just taught how to create that rassi from the coconut shells. And since it's a new place and Babarao Savarkar is a cell far away, we show, and Randeep has done an amazing job in this scene, which he always does. He turns and he sees a particular placard. We don't show the placard at first, and he gets up and there's hope on his face, and we wonder what is happening, we build, what is he looking at? And he turns around and he screams, Dada! And we show inside the cell his brother reacting, that he can hear. We show inside the cell his brother reacting, he can hear, and he's saying, Dada, Dada. And here, because there's no police right now, but the other prisoners look towards him, and now we see that he's looking at a placard that says, the prisoners from mutiny of 1857. His entire fight was about 1857 Swatantrya Samar, the fight and how that was a revolution, not a mutiny. And there are old people, very old, extremely old, like people like who are like 80, 90, but now just bones and things like that. And he looks at them and he salutes. And he screams, I'm sorry if I get emotional, he screams, 1857 ke Swatantrya Veeron ki jai! And those old people, they get up because they have been scared all these. 1857 ke Swatantrya Veeron ki jai! These are people who were arrested in 1870 when it was made, and in 1910 they were still there for 40 years. And they says Jai, 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 and everybody joins him. And we see their tears flowing on those prisoners because nobody has given them this respect ever. And when police comes by, then everybody is going Jai, Jai. Babarao inside his solitary confinement is screaming Jai, 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 1857 ke Swatantrya Veeron ki Jai. And this is why David Barry whips him now.
Oh, this is actually a very touchy scene.
Yes, so there were two reasons for this. I'll be very honest about this also. One is, of course, when you're talking about length and how it's happening, and second thing is, we'll talk more about it later also, but when you're making, be it mythology or be it historical movie, one very important aspect is references. So although anecdotally we knew that old men of mutiny were there, but we could not find names of these people even from the cellular jail, Andaman.
Okay.
So both Randeep and I felt, and Randeep correctly pointed out, that ours is a film which should be a movie where people are not able to question the authenticity. So because of that, let's not do this. Otherwise, what if somebody questions and then we are not able to give an exact thing, and then they try to, and how discrediting works. Oh, this one thing is not real. Hence, everything must be false.
False, true.
So, and there was a time sequence also, and we found a faster way that one brother gets beaten up, the other brother is whipped, and we move forward accordingly. So that's another reason why we took that out. But yeah, let's see. But thank you for asking this. It's good to, it's off my chest. It's off my chest talking about the entire aspect where let me tell you, there are many other scenes also, but these are some I can share right now.
Yes, sir, since you mentioned about authenticity, could you please share how much of the film is fiction?
Why would there be anything fiction in the movie as such? देखिए, this entire thing happens a lot when we talk of any political movie. We think in terms of fiction, and I have dealt this even when I've written shows, mythological shows like Devogadev, Mahadev or Radha Krishna. There is a subgenre called mythological fiction and historical fiction. That is when you take an aspect of history or mythology and add fiction of it. That is when you take aspect of history or mythology and add proper fiction to it. For example, Amish writing about the immortals of Meluha, that's a proper mythological fiction. As he states that, like, it has nothing to do with Shiv Puran. He's taken the characters and then he's created his own beautifully crafted story of Chandravansh and Raghuvansh and how it Suryavansh and Chandravansh and how it works out. So this is mythological fiction.
Okay.
But when we are talking about Shiv Puran and a translation of that, or say a mythological show that is taking each chapter of Shiv Puran, each war, and then creating drama around, that's not fiction. That's something that has happened, and it's inspired by that.
Okay.
Historical fiction would be how there was, I think last year there was a movie called Gandhi Banam Godse, or Gandhi and Godse, in which there was it was a historical fiction about what if Gandhiji was not killed, and then Godse's interaction with him, and so this is a fiction on that. So when you ask me a question about how much of it is fiction, every single incident in the movie that happens, would have, as researcher on the film, a research consultant on the film, I would have minimum 2 references, if not more, in different books that has happened. And mind you, we were prepared for this, that we'll be questioned. So there should not be any holes in that. And that is why, even though today you will find that there are some people who, without watching the movie, are either trolling it, or even after watching the movie are saying sub-fiction and things like that. Notice one very specific thing. Very often when something like this happens, within the first week, there's major, like, noise made about how they are showing everything fabricated. This never happened, that never happened. Notice how there's complete silence on that front, because we have done our homework. Randeep and I used to actually play this game, and like each incident, okay, where. So I would be able to tell you, like, I'll give you an example. There's a scene in the movie, and I can talk about this openly because even if people have not seen the film, even for them, it is there in the trailers, where Gandhiji and Savarkar meet for the first time in 1906, October 1906 in India House in London. And he is cooking prawns.
Yeah.
Now, so it's a very big thing to say. I mean, like, oh my God, this, for example, this can't be fiction. I can't, contrary to what people will say, I can't conjure this from my imagination. So now, how did I go about, just to give an example of how we find research and what has happened. So like I was praising Vikram Sampath ji earlier. So in his that first volume, Echoes of a Forgotten Past, in that he had mentioned this incident of them meeting for the first time. Why I like that book, and as I praised it in the beginning also, is that it's an unbiased account. So he says that he also gives references of where he took it from. So reading that book, I saw him speaking about Harindranath ji, who used to live in India House, who had said that he, like, there was an eyewitness who saw this interaction happen. So I chased that book in which he has written. Then I found that book, and then I had scans from that book ready when I was questioned that how can you say that in 1906 October, because the more famous meeting, which is also there in the movie, is that Vijayadashmi debate. So some people think that's when they met for the first time. Okay, so to say that this happened and these such massive statements were made, so then I had to go back and look at that Marathi book. Similarly, the second meeting that happened of Mahatma Gandhi, by then he was Mahatma Gandhi and he was Swatantrya Veer Savarkar, when they were sitting and talking in the house. Now again, Kheer Sahab ki Marathi book hai. So it's not just about one book. So then a different book that spoke about how they had met and how they. So now what happens is that the book tells us that they spoke about electorate, they spoke about Harijan and all that. And then the dialogues that you hear, what we've written, it is from the point of view, if this was the topic, now what would have happened? So I'll tell you the rule that we follow in mythology, which happens, which is used here also, is that sometimes history and mythology, because we come from a culture where we do not respect the word mythology, which comes from myth. We call it Puran. And we say like Shruti, Smriti, Puranukta, Itihasa. There are 4 aspects: that which is heard, Ved; that which is written with memory, that's Upanishads. Okay, Puran, which are true but interpreted in different ways, and an Itihasa, aise hua tha. Itihasa then would be Ramayana and Mahabharata. So that is how we look at that. So mythology is a questionable word, but I'm using it very casually here, not in the way, in a myth point of view. So in mythology also we say that what is written in a text, we never change that. What we write, this is what I've done with 10 years of whatever television shows that I was creating. From Devagodev Mahadev to Shani to Mahakali to Radha Krishna, what is written you do not change, but very often the books do not speak of the mindset of a person while doing something. So if you ask of fiction, that is the only part where we say this, because now solitary confinement, he was inside, only Savarkar was inside. Okay, an incident can happen. Okay, or he could be hit, but we do not know what he's thinking. Of course, in this case, the advantage was that he has spoken about what he was thinking because he's written his autobiography. But even what was going through Gandhi's mind when, say, Caliphate or something, there are various things that happened. So now the only part comes is that the mindset or the point of view, drishtikon. This sometimes is not clear when a fact is mentioned. This is where we are in the world of looking at the words fact and truth in 2 different ways. A factual information is an event. A fact is me wearing this kurta, okay, and you wearing this jeans, or we are sitting in these sofas, and now these are facts because we are speaking about this. There's no emotion involved. Sometimes in events, in historical events and facts, it's not so straightforward as stating a date. Otherwise, I will say, yeah, 1919, Jallianwala Bagh, General Dyer gave an instruction and people were killed. Fact. But the truth is it was Jallianwala Bagh massacre. What happened to people and all. When we add, so truth, I would say, is something where perspectives also come in. If I were to draw this shape, from your point of view, this is which number?
0.
No, this. Like if I'm doing this. So it's
6.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, if I look at it, no, for me this is 6. If for you, this would be a 9.
9.
But fact is, this number is here.
Yeah.
It is 9 is your truth. You're not wrong. It is 6 is my truth. I'm not wrong. So sometimes when you're writing in history, you have to look at the words, not just fact as a black and white isolation, but the colors of truth as well. That's where points of view come in. So if you are talking about fiction, no, there's no conjured incidences. But the perspectives of people, what did his brother feel? What happened here? What happened when he was traveling in the ship? Now facts are there. I have various references that there were altercations with people. There is various references that is where he and that's the difference also between a documentary and a movie. So like for example, we have a scene in the movie that there's an altercation in the ship where Harnam Singh is attacked and he comes to defend him so now what is fiction, what is fact? Now the fact is that yes, that abuse had happened, yes, that sign in first class dogs in India is not allowed, it's been written about. It's a fact that it's on that ship when we decided for the first time that I need to start having non-veg. Because he wanted to look after himself and he said he didn't want to become overtly dependent on anything and take care of himself in a way that he has to be strong. You were earlier talking about what we have to leave out. There's I'll tell you something very mysterious and interesting that actually there is one character in that ship. He is one character that till date we don't know what that character's real name is, because Savarkar ji wrote of him in that ship and withheld his name and just called him Mr. Etiquette. Okay. He was the guy who taught Savarkar ji how to wear a tie, how to tie a tie, how to wear the properly jacket, and just like look at your etiquettes and everything like that. So, and he played a big role later also when the guns were sent back. He was a rich man, and in rolls of cloth they were hidden and sent the bomb manuals and everything like that. Every time that his name has come up in Savarkar ji's autobiography, he's been referred to as Mr. Etiquette. And that's why, be it Vaibhav Purandare, be it Vikram Sampath, everybody talks of this mysterious character called Mr. Etiquette. Till date, we don't know what was that person's name. Because Savarkar ji kept that the secret, and we don't know why he was holding that back. He was also removed from the script later. Like I said, there are many other scenes that is not there. But then we crunched it. The question that Mr. Iyer has asked was actually from Mr. Etiquette. Now, it's not that Savarkar said those exactly lines about Sabhyata and Sanskriti. That is dialogue. So now it's not that we had like a, like camera like this and this set for them to talk. So we have all in recording. No, this is where creation of movie happens. We know, because we discussed what would make him get into that kind of mindset. That, okay, I am a Chitpavan Brahmin, okay, but I will eat non-veg as well. And that's where the entire angle of Sabhyata and Sanskriti comes in. The difference between culture and civility. So this entire perspective was there. So in terms of authenticity, I'm saying this very openly and plainly that no incident of the movie Swatantrya Veer Savarkar can be challenged in terms of aise nahi hua tha. I'll give more examples. There is somebody talking about, I will not name, but a critic has spoken about, they have spoken about Bhagat Singh meeting Savarkar, but there is no evidence of that. Evidence ki baat nahi hai yahan par. When it comes to historical events, we are talking about different authors writing different things and from their perspective. I have multiple references where what happened when they interacted. They are saying, oh, he did not, I read jokes about that, oh, he was a kid, he would not have done. I have references of Bhagat Singh talking about, writing about Savarkar and saying that this book has inspired me and that's why I wanted to do this and publish this book in English. So this is a reference. Now people are questioning, Subhash Chandra Bose and he never met. Not just Savarkar's own book. We have reference from other books, even British people mentioning the entire thing of Bose meeting Savarkar. And here's the clincher. So people say, again I will not name somebody, critic or, but people are talking about, but Subhash Chandra Bose hated Hindu Mahasabha. That's a fact. But Subhash Chandra Bose was a congressee and he was like, yes, that's right. But when you're writing about this, then instead of calling the movie propaganda, then look deeper. What happened is that here's the order of events. Yes, he had an issue with the entire angle of a Hindu Mahasabha. When he met Sri Savarkar, the entire angle of him telling him about Ras Bihari Bose being in Japan, I have multiple references, and the clincher is that in 1942-43, there used to be Singapore radio audio speeches of Subhash Chandra Bose that they used to play. And I have reference of one of those speeches where he is praising Savarkar multiple number of times, saying that it was his idea that more people should be joining the British force, which we have used in the movie. Samay batayega nali ke sor ghumani hai. Okay. Now, so in fact, that idea we got from Subhash Chandra Bose's speech on radio. Okay. That it was he who encouraged more kind of. Yes, his speech was also available, but that's how we knew all this is there. So I talk about authenticity. That's why I'm saying I'm very happy to, whenever somebody says, I don't go after the trolls because that is just giving them importance. Right. But my DMs are open on Twitter for X, formerly known as Twitter. And I always say this, if you've seen the movie, if you have doubts and questions about any incident happening, my DMs are open, please ask. Every single thing that happens in the movie Swatantrya Veer Savarkar can be proved using multiple references, articles, recordings and speeches of multiple leaders and different pro and against speeches on Savarkar. Everything that is there. Otherwise, are we fools that we'll create a movie which then can be attacked and said, oh, all this is false, and somebody proves it in the court of law and we are shown like fools? No. And that's why it hurts when people just simply call it propaganda. People just say, oh, it's all false, sab jhoot hai, sab jhoot hai. Okay, fine, prove it. That's what I say normally.
Exactly. People actually do not, just put forward the judgment and do not go into the depth of the facts or the history.
Yes, yes. See what happens,
That is the
Soumya.
problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, Soumya, what happens is that we have been trained to think in a certain way.
Right.
Randeep beautifully said it in his interview when we used to discuss and used to laugh about it, and he says it that this is an anti-propaganda movie. Now, why? It's not a random thought. This movie has to be made, this movie had to be made, like I said in the beginning, because here's a person who has suffered because of propaganda.
Right.
What kind of propaganda? For example, Maafi Veer. I have a proper scan of Jawaharlal Nehru writing mercy petition. I have, and mind you, with all due respect to the first Prime Minister of India, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, with respect, they have not faced Andaman cellular cell. No congressy went there. They were, I mean, today if you just Google and search the kind of places they had to live, they had all facilities. They could get whatever they wished. Savarkar had to wait a year and a half and then meeting Craddock and then getting paper and pen, whereas Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru discovered India inside the jail. There's so much of facility was available. Everything was written inside the jail. All that was there. Everything was there. So now when we are talking about incidences, we have been trained to think in a certain way. There's a very famous song, De Di Hame Azadi Bina Khadak Bina Dhal, Sabarmati Ke Sant Tune Kar Diya Kamal. I have nothing against Mahatma Gandhi. I have a lot of respect for a lot of things that he did. But this song puts me off. Because when we say De Di Hame Azadi Bina Khadak Bina Dhal, झांसी की रानी तात्या टोपे से लेकर खुदीराम बोस से लेकर हर एक इंसान की बेइज्जती है अगर बोलेंगे बिना खड़क बिना ढाल के हमें आज़ादी मिल गई तो. Because everybody has played an important part. Every single person is responsible for the freedom that you and I and the trolls enjoy today in this country.
True.
Now, when we are talking about authenticity, truth and fact, now that's the thing. When people are saying, oh, but this has not happened and all, because they haven't read enough. They have, when I was writing the show on Samrat Ashok, do you know that the entire story of Chand Ashok, where he destroyed the entire thing, like that war happened and then he became a Buddhist and all. Do you know today there are multiple historians struggling to find exact references for that? You see, what has happened is, we in this culture have always been poor historians, and there's a reason for that. It's because we were Shruti Smriti people. We were Maukhik. Guru Shishya Parampara was also Maukhik, from words, spoken and listened and understood. We were not into, that's why even in Deva Bhasha Sanskrit, the spoken Sanskrit predates the script by God knows how many centuries. Because the spoken Sanskrit predates the script. Even before Devanagari, there was Pali, Ardhamagadhi, Prakrit, various scripts were used. But Sanskrit, the language, predates these scripts by centuries, and we don't even know by how much. Why? Because we did not have the system where we wrote everything down.
Right.
So when it comes to Ashok, there's hardly any reference of an Indian historian telling us what has happened. Because who knows? Someone killed his story. And his story was recreated in a way so that he was made to, it's like how I would think as a writer. He was made to look like an attacking villain so that his transformation into a monk becomes powerful. Who knows? I'm not saying that's how it is. All I'm saying is when I was researching for the show and I struggled to find India, I realized that we are completely dependent on Buddhist resources when it comes to whatever Ashoka did. Similarly, when people have grown up and read about Azadi, they have bought into, we are hypnotized into thinking in a certain way because a certain mindset was always encouraged. A certain mindset to keep the majority in a mellow state of mind. I think that's a mellow word to use in this. There are harsher words I can use, but mellow state of mind. And through that, so, we never read the opposite side. This is a counter narrative. We are saying, and when I can look into the lens of a camera and say that we have authentic references for what you have shown, that means that there is the other side also. And that's why whenever someone says he wants to argue about Savarkar and about the movie, first question I say, have you seen the movie? Please watch the movie and then we'll discuss about that.
Yes, sir. Along the same lines, one of the things that bothers me is that we have been taught history, and I have been very diligently studying history throughout my childhood, but unfortunately we have never been taught this angle of the history. And to give an example, we can simply look at the Khilafat scene. So we have been taught about Khilafat movement in a school, but in the movie when you see, the Khilafat movement has been given a completely new or different perspective. So I really wanted to know your insights on it, and what is the reason behind it that we have not been, never told about the different angle of the history, which is actually very important for us to know.
Before I speak of Khalifat, any historian worth his salt will never say Khilafat. Before I speak of Khalifat, I want to appreciate you for actually having the awareness of realizing that you have not been taught certain aspects of history. The fact that you've realized it, then your eyes are open. I encourage people who read one book and believe this is what happened in history. I encourage those youngsters to see today's situation. If something comes on news, now it's difficult to believe it on face value. You have to look at the logo of the channel and decide that ye left leaning or right leaning to know what is the perspective, because that is what is diluting the entire part of it. So I really appreciate you for being aware of this, that some aspects are hidden, so that you can, I'm not saying that one side is right. I'm just encouraging everyone to read both the sides. So Khalifat. Now, facts then truth. Okay. Of course, I want to say this in the show that when I'm not saying that fact and truth are completely two different words. I'm just saying that how fact is an emotionless aspect. Like कानून की आंखों में पट्टी होती है, कानून अंधा है. That's, people don't realize, but it's not for nothing. Like for example, in our movie, like Baba Saheb Ambedkar, when he's shown, there is shadow on his face. It's not a coincidence, because he is what we would call the Nyaya Murti. Okay, and that's why he was the one who was at that point in time, even when his face, because he, through darkness, he could see the truth, and that's why he was the one. And some people were questioning that scene in which Baba Saheb Ambedkar questions Mahatma Gandhi's decision of what he called Khilafat Andolan. I need to tell those people that if they will read books, they'll realize that I let the scene off very easily. Baba Saheb Ambedkar went all out saying much more than what is shown in the film. I am very fond of Baba Saheb Ambedkar and so much that he've done. And again, it's a narrative. Baba Saheb Ambedkar spoke against every religion. But we have been only taught about what he spoke about against one religion and Jati Pratha and everything. Whereas, if anybody will read his works, will realize that even the other religions also, the noble ones, the peaceful ones and everyone, he has taken them apart as well. So the narrative of Baba Saheb being anti-Hindu or anti-Jati Pratha is a very twisted interpretation of looking at one aspect of fact and stopping there. He was someone who was encouraging people to come out of the clutches of religion completely and do what is your duty, which in Sanskrit we refer to as dharma. Now what has happened is, so Khalifat, when that happened and Savarkar was in jail and all, that's a fact, Ali brothers who were involved. So Turkestan, now the current Turkey, there was an entire aspect that was happening where there was a proper dethroning happened that is there, and there was different parts of the Muslim community around the world reacted to that. In India, and that's why we have given Jinnah and we have reference for that. Jinnah wasn't pro-Caliphate Andolan. Okay, that's why the Jinnah says कि ये तुर्किस्तान में हो रहा तो हम क्यों लड़ रहे हैं? Okay. Now, what happened is when the dethroning of the Sultan there happened, and here we were feeling bad, and those who are saying that Mahatma Gandhi is being lampooned, we are the first film to speak openly about the problems of Khalifat Andolan, but at the same time, this movie also, in a way, defend is a wrong word, but in a way explains point of view of Mahatma Gandhi as well. Mahatma Gandhi was not a fool to just randomly say, okay, fine, let us do this. No, he was a very thinking man. So what was his point of view? Remember, we don't know the future. Our decisions can turn out to be mistakes.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that somebody did it with a certain aim. So Mahatma Gandhi's intentions are not questioning. He believed that if Hindu Muslims are seen together, then British will not get the idea of separating them. And that's why he started creating a scenario where entire India should do Khalifat. In a lovely marketing move became Khilafat, and Khilafat Andolan, unke Khilafat mein humko ye pura karna chahiye. We have spoken about something else also which people don't talk about, and that is the Mopla massacre. In dialogue we have mentioned, पहले तो deleted scene है, पहले we even have sequences shown of what had happened there. What happened in Mopla, and again, now I'm not making this up, and I encourage anybody to read what is written on Mopla, but not just the Westerners, even the Indian perspective. Now what happened is, when Mahatma Gandhi asked Hindus to join Muslims and together fight against this entire bad thing that had happened in Turkestan, it was, maybe I should say, misunderstood or understood differently by some section of society that this must happen. So in Mopla, what happened is, there was no choice given. What they were told is that you better join us in this. And when they didn't do that, there was a massacre. Till date, we don't know the exact number of how many people of one particular religion were killed, because there was constant attack, there was intentional cow slaughter, there were a certain kind of a flag representing one particular religion was put into local households, and these are all facts. And I mean, I wouldn't speak in this channel if I had not read it in multiple books.
Right.
Now nobody talks about it. Why? And again, I'm not blaming anybody. Why is because, okay, all these bad things have happened in the past. Think of the people who are, I'm not bringing villains out of them, but ruling parties in the 50s and 60s. You see, they got worried if children are taught all this, that fact, this happened to their community, then they will grow up and they may dislike or have dissonance against a certain section of society. And they are the majority. We must ensure that the majority is mellowed, which is the philosophy of Narendra anyway. It connects really old from that point of view. And that's why our syllabus became such that all of us need to think in a certain way where we are peace-loving citizens and all, so that society eventually, control is a harsh word, but society eventually, governments are there to manage the society in certain ways, you know. So, and we've always been managed. So, this is the entire reason. So I never ask anyone to change their mind. I just say, read more. Like Adi Shankaracharya would say, okay, I mean, what you're saying, I'm not saying it's incorrect, but let's not stop there. Go deeper.
Right.
Read more. Read more. Right. There's so much of Savarkar that we didn't get to show, but we wanted to. But in the given time, but first I had to read everything before uttering a word. So yeah, that is the real reason why youngsters do not know of these things, because that is how it has happened. And that's why today, when some people are saying that, dude, this is also a fact, this happened, we are hypnotically conditioned to go against it, because human beings always stay in comfort zone. I have done my certification in personal counseling. In psychology, it is very clearly explained that even thought process wise, if you tell me something that is completely out of the way I think, my instinct will be to disagree with you. That is human nature. Okay. That's what's happening today. And that's why I encourage, the only solution is increase your knowledge and consciously learn to read both sides. Like, I did not write the film unless I wrote everything written against Savarkar as well. So that is the entire point.
So we have been talking about various other freedom fighters throughout our conversation, but and the thing that struck me is, although the film is named Swatantrya Veer Savarkar, but equal emphasis has been given to all other freedom fighters who has been involved, and be it Gandhiji and his ideologies, or Ambedkar in such a brief role is making his presence felt. So how did you maintain balance in giving importance to all other freedom fighters as well in the picture, and how did you maintain a balance in giving equal emphasis to all the other freedom fighters in the movie?
First, I'd like to tell the audience, please trust us. This is not that we didn't discuss this way. I'm so happy Soumya said this, is because if this is how you have felt about the film, then Randeep and I have done a good job creating this entire situation, because we were very clear from the beginning that Swatantrya Veer Savarkar is the lens. But what we are making a movie about is Sashastra Kranti. Yeah. The armed revolution of India. That's why 1857 is a reference, because, and it is relevant because, and that's what even Savarkar said, it's from his ideology. Right. That's from 1857, the armed revolution had begun. From there were different people coming, and I will, instead of Dedi Hame Azadi, I'll go for the other song, Tum Bhool Na Jao Unko Isliye Kahi Ye Kahani. We are talking about ये सब जो शहीद हुए armed revolution को लेके, they are the unsung heroes. And just knowing their name is not enough. It's just that making one or two people as the biggest heroes created, look, I don't mean any disrespect, I'm saying this because I come from advertising. Focusing on a certain ideology internationally created a very good brand, which kept more peace than aggression. Right. But you do not forget that aggression and armed revolution played such a big role. So we were very clear that this is a movie on Sashastra Kranti, and that's why, like you've seen the movie, all the news around showing everybody is Phansi. That's why talking about the entire thing of Chapekar Bandhu in the beginning, who inspired him. That's why the entire aspect of Madan Lal Dhingra. That's why the entire aspect of Khudiram Bose talking about him, because they have not been given attention. I wish if the movie was longer or something like that, I would have loved to talk more about it. Each one of them, every single one of them deserve their own biopics actually. And there's enough matter for that if people are willing to make. So that is the reason that I'm so happy that you felt that it was done that way, because very consciously we were always making a movie on Sashastra Kranti. Lens was Savarkar, we were looking at Sashastra Kranti.
Right, it is very important to know that, I feel.
Yes.
So there is a notable scene where Hindutva has been defined eloquently through a series of dialogues, and so my question is, how did you actually go ahead crafting that particular scene? And did Savarkar ji's views on Hindutva align with what has been portrayed through the series of dialogue?
Savarkar ji wrote an entire book for that one scene, for our one scene. He was so nice to us. So, and again, I will encourage people to read that book, Hindutva. Why it's important is because I want to clear one confusion. You see, very often the complication happens about the way we interpret a single word. One of my favorite authors, Milan Kundera, he's a Czech author from Czech Republic. His book, Unbearable Lightness of Being, has a concept called Dictionary of Misunderstood Word. That every word means different things to different people. So he looks at the word love. So he says when a girl says I love you to a guy, the guy listens to her, but what love means to him, now he believes she feels the same way towards him. Yeah. And vice versa. And that's why people say you used to love me, you don't love me anymore, but he's loving you from his point of view, not his point, not what you think, and vice versa. So like that, even in politics, all the words that happen, they have different way of looking at it. So, Hindutva. See, once years ago, I had gotten into an argument with one notable journalist, if that's what I should call her, called Teesta Setilvan. And she was speaking something against, and somebody tried to step in the middle and said ki, because I was questioning she using the term terrorist about some of the factions and all, just because saying Hindu terrorists. So someone tried to mediate and said ki, no, she's not talking about the Hindus, right? She's talking about the Hindutvavadis. So I said, and what's the difference? So I said, see, I'm a student of Sanskrit, student of Hindi. Hindutva, tvakarant. So Hindutva, it's a sangya. Deva, devatva, Hindu, Hindutva. But then, as I grew up, I realized that no, the word Hindutva is seen very differently. So the way I spoke about Milan Kundera teaching us that how people interpret words differently and believe that that is what the truth is, this is what happened in current terms when the term Hindutva became, for some weird reason, now nobody knows exactly what they mean by that. It's like, but I think they very often speak about the aggressive aspect of Hinduism, which is a more complicated term, okay, as Hindutva, which is laughable, looking at it from language semantic. What is more complicated, that looking at that what they call terrorist, that kind of an aggressive definition of Hindutva, and then they say father of Hindutva is Vinayak Savarkar. Savarkar ji was the second person ever to use the word Hindutva publicly. Okay. There was a Bengali author who had done it first, but it was made famous by Savarkar ji. The catch is, and why this movie makes a very important statement, is that people need to realize that what they think today is Hindutva has nothing to do with what Vinayak Damodar Savarkar spoke about Hindutva, and that's why that scene was important. So when Randeep and I were sitting on that and we were discussing kaise mein kya karna hai, so that scene was very important, and this is still an edited version. There were more aspects of this entire thing, but this was the thing and it worked well. Like it took a while, but my brother has also spoken in Sanskrit, so I'm so happy for him. But usme samay laga, but I'm so happy he did that. So that shlok is written by Savarkar himself, right, which is the definition of being a Hindu. Now see how different it is from the way today we interpret being a Hindu. So what Vinayak Savarkar said is, आसिंधु सिंधु पर्यंता यस्य भारत भूमिका पितृभूः पुण्यभूश्चैव स वै हिंदु रीति स्मृतः. Now let me go word by word so that it is easy for everybody to understand. Asindhu Sindhu Paryanta, word play. Sindhu can be seen in is the Sindhu Nadi, and Sindhu also means Sagar. So Sindhu se Sagar tak. Yasya in Sanskrit, Yasya is jo. Yasya Bharat Bhumika, Bharat ki bhumi mein jo, भारत की भूमि में जो इस भूमि को पितृभू पुण्यभूश्चैव, पितृभूमि माने और पुण्य भूमि माने स वो वै हिंदू रीति स्मृतः, इस तरह से वो हिंदू है, ऐसे व्याख्या है. So now what this means is that he spoke of the two terms pitrabhumi and punyabhumi. Very important terms. Why didn't he say matribhumi? I mean, although that is indicated also in that, we have also addressed that in the scene. But why did he say pitrabhumi specifically? Because he was aware that although he himself thought, like he says, कि सबकी शादी करा दो आपस में सब खत्म, but he was aware that people take lineage very seriously. Remember, Vinayak Savarkar ji was somebody who was always thinking from the point of view of what everybody will do about this later. That's why he was a visionary. The difference between a regular revolutionary and a visionary is just this much. That a revolutionary is trying to create that revolution means breaking an existing pattern and creating a new beginning, whereas a visionary is somebody who's not just breaking the pattern, who's thinking about what this will become in the future. Savarkar ji was not just a revolutionary, he was also a visionary. So he understood that people will look at the lineage. So he said Pitrabhumi, because Purkhon ki zameen, because in the classical sense, now it is not like that, but at that time it was like that. Okay, this definition was created in 1922-23. So at that point of time, लड़कियां शादी करके कहीं और जाएंगी, पर lineage जो है वो पितृभूमि है, पिता की भूमि है. So he said, somebody who can say that मेरे पुरखे यहाँ रहते थे, and पुण्य भूमि, and my holy land was here, is here. And by punya bhumi, it is such a clever way of putting it, because he was aware that when we look at it in a deeper sense, Sanatan Dharma does not make it all about bhumi anyway. Because we say Ishwar is within us. Or if we talk about a mandir, uska bhi garbhagriha hota hai. Okay. So it's not like that entire Hinduism, हमारे किसी देव की, राम की भूमि अयोध्या बात कर सकते हैं, पर वो हिंदुत्व की या हिंदू धर्म की इस तरह से भूमि की नहीं है, बिकॉज वी डोंट थिंक लाइक दिस. फॉर अस भूमि इज द गॉडेस, लक्ष्मी का स्वरूप है भूमि. बट ही वॉज अवेयर दैट इन हिज डेफिनेशन ऑफ हिंदुत्व ही वॉज टेकिंग, नॉट लुकिंग एट अ रिलीजन. लाइक जैसे रणदीप का डायलॉग है जो हमने लिखा उसमें करके कि ये किसी धर्म का नहीं, ये एक राजनीतिक, सांस्कृतिक, भौगोलिक सच्चाई है. सो he was aware that he wanted other sects to be a part of this, and that's why he said Punya Bhumi, because he was aware that there are a few people, if they are, dare I say, so radicalized in their faith that they live in India but they think Holy Land is not here, then they are not Hindu. That's what he's saying. It's nothing to do with religion. Anybody who is focused on Hind is Hindu, is what he has said more than once in the movie, because that's what he says more than once in the book Hindutva. Right. Also the epochs of life of Hinduism, when he talks about that clearly, which is actually collection of his speeches, he repeatedly brings about this, that it's not about religion at all. You can be from any religion. When you're a Hindu, that means you're willing to call this bhumi your bhumi and you're willing to fight for it. That's why he went to that definition. Without that scene, in our humble opinion, the movie would have been incomplete. Because that's where I need people to understand that hang on. He is not talking about what we are being told today. That's why it was important.
So did you actually go and watch the film in the theatre, and how are the audience reacting there? Is there something very unexpected that you have seen in the audience reaction and you did not expect that at the first place?
हाँ, आई नो लोग कहेंगे ओ स्पिरिचुअली नो अटैचमेंट टू एवरीथिंग लाइक दैट, पर नहीं, मैं 4 बार थिएटर में फिल्म देख चुका हूँ और सिर्फ ऑडियंस का रिएक्शन देखने के लिए कैसे में क्या है. एंड थैंकफुली इट्स बीन वेरी गुड. आई मस्ट से आई हैव एंजॉयड द नॉट सो एफ्लुएंट थिएटर्स मोर. वो ऑडियंस ज़्यादा रिस्पॉन्सिव है. they like when I saw it in a particular theater in Jammu, तो वो theater was like almost full, but they were quiet. They were like, I remembered how Beatles in their performance had said that, oh, the royalty, if you can't clap, then you can just, play with your earring to clap for us, John Lennon had said. वैसे हो गया. मैंने कहा यार कुछ reaction नहीं है. And I've also seen this movie where only half the theater is full, but every second line they're clapping, laughing, and all those things are happening, and it is so cool. But the second part of your question, that was there anything? Yeah, there's one moment that, and both Randeep and I were laughing about it. I mean, credit goes to him also. But while writing, I never thought it would be that one line that gets a reaction in every screening, and that is that when 10 years later, when his wife goes to meet him, and when his younger brother says कि गांधी जी ने कहा है अब तो जरूर हो जाएगा, and Savarkar's reaction is क्या गांधी इतना बड़ा हो गया, people laugh. And it wasn't really, I mean, while writing we never thought about it like that. See, honestly, that's a very tricky scene also, because we haven't stayed away from the fact of Savarkar feeling what you can also call like a hint of jealousy, seeing that somebody who became so big and he didn't. That's why even with his daughter, when he comes, he says, देखो बहुत बड़े भाई, बहुत बड़े आदमी आए हैं, because he was aware कि he didn't get that recognition. So him saying इतना बड़ा हो गया, so it was, yes, it was a sarcastic remark, but it was something. But while writing, never we imagined that this will be that one line. Till date, anybody watching it anywhere, even that Juhu crowd also laughed in this one line.
Yeah.
So that is one thing that I was really surprised by the reaction of the public on that. Otherwise, yeah, I'm just happy people have liked it. At least I used to get nightmares like, what if everybody goes to sleep and they say, but nahi, it's been going well, so that's good.
Yeah, even I could relate with that one line.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So also, sir, what was the response of the media towards the film? We have talked about audience so far.
Oh, was there a response? I will start by saying a special thank you to those hundreds of YouTubers who have been unpaid, unrecognized brand ambassadors of our movie. I don't want to be too much of a conspiracy theorist, but I've heard that couple of years ago, when couple of movies came and they were attacked by certain section of media a lot, that generated more interest in the public because they were discussed more. And I'm told that certain section of media understood that if some ideology has to be stopped from coming forward, then the correct approach is we don't talk about it. So there was a vaccine war, there was a Bastar. I'm not a critic. I'm not here giving opinions about quality of a film. But I had already seen what had happened. All the top critics, all the people, there was like no reaction, no nothing. They didn't review the film. And same happened with us. And there were so many critics that if you read the review, they haven't said bad things. But they've given a 2.5 star. At best 3 stars. They've said, हाँ रणदीप has acted well. पढ़ो तो बुराई नहीं कर रहे हैं. But they have given. So yes, media has been very interesting. Basically, this has been very interesting experience, and even those who have reviewed the film, I've read the reviews. One are the kinds that who have praised the film but given lesser stars, and second is, I mean, I can immediately name 2, but I don't want to give them the publicity. But then there are a couple of them where it is all about, like the review is more about ideology and issues, propaganda film hai. They haven't really reviewed the movie. They haven't spoken about, I mean, a review will involve performances, direction, cinematography, music. This is what I understand. It's like, or your experience, if nothing else, your experience of watching the movie. But no, these reviews are about how India has come when such movies are being made and all that has happened. So that has been the media thing. But like I started by thanking the YouTubers, right now so much of success, like word of mouth is what is working for us. And it is all you people who are really making it work for us. And of course, and other than that, like Mr. Vivek Agnihotri ji, he tweeted that it's important to watch this film. In Marathi section, Supriya Pilgaonkar ji, wife of Sachin Pilgaonkar, wrote an amazing Insta post with, I loved the ending. She said, do you dare to watch the film? And interestingly, apart from that, there's been no response from anyone. People who normally are going, watching movies, writing about it. I'm not saying anything, but it almost feels like as if people have been told not to talk about the film. Because you see, there's a method to the perceived silence, not madness. Right. So yeah, that's been the experience with media. But at the end of it, we have done what we had come to do. This movie has spoken about aspects of history that have not been shown in Bollywood. Hollywood ko सवाल नहीं उठता. In Bollywood, it's never been shown. Like for example, Gandhiji's relation with the medical auxiliary force. People didn't know. Okay, the entire naval mutiny. Maybe in some book somewhere one line was mentioned, but the role it played in the independence of India. The fact that that scene that is there in the film, the English scene where Prime Minister Attlee goes and speaks to the king, that entire scene comes from the autobiography of Prime Minister Attlee that he wrote in 1955. Ironically, it was from his biography that we were able to get data that the British were to have reference. We knew it, but when we have to show the reference, so it was then like that. So, but you know what? I speak for Randeep also, and I speak for our cast and crew, everybody. We knew these kind of situations would happen, and it's also like you know how there's a scene, you know, there's a dialogue in the movie where Vinayak Savarkar asks his younger brother Narayan Savarkar कि तो कैसा चल रहा है, because he wants to ask for money, डॉक्टर कैसी चल रही है, and he says कि नाम सावरकर है ना, पेशेंट्स कम आते हैं. So सावरकर जी को अपनी लाइफ में भी बहुत मेहनत करनी पड़ी. We have faith in the product that we have created. We have faith in what we have made, and we are proud of what we have created. Time will tell that this movie will be recognized in lots of ways, because I feel so weird. So many reviewers, they are not talking about like they'll mention, but I think this is one of Ankita Lokhande's best performances. She hardly has a dialogue, but just the way she looks at it, it's incredible. Okay, both the women of the movie, people are saying over, even Tirtha, who plays the role of Yeshu Vaini, she hardly has any dialogues, but you remember her, she is so impactful and she speaks so well. She's not there at all in the second half. There is Mrinal, who plays the role of Madan Lal Dhingra. Most people, when they come out, especially girls, okay, they have Googled and checked out Instagram and all that has happened and all. You'll be getting a chance to talk to him. You should ask him about how many of his followers have increased, because here's a guy, and in a country, and this is what Randeep had set out to do, this is what we meant by that Peaky Blinders angle. In a country where we have one idea of thinking of freedom fighters, you know, but here comes Madan Lal Dhingra, who says, Kranti apni jagah, masti apni jagah. Okay, now and the way Mrinal has performed the entire thing, it's a unique performance. Every reviewer should be talking about this. No, they're talking about ideology and things like that. So, theek hai, but I know for a fact that everybody involved in this film will flourish accordingly. And even the movie, it's just that even now, and I'm saying this even to your audience, even now, if they go to theatre and they watch, that will encourage more people to come and watch, because there is an entire system working against us, which is constantly writing tweets under every message talking about flop hai. From day one, they knew it before us. So when it comes to media, yeah, that's a harsh reality, but it gives you almost a sense of thrill. I almost feel like I'm also a part of Savarkar's team now. Because, and not just me, Mrinal, Randeep, Babarao apne, matlab, I always call all my actors with their character names, so I have to remember their name. Amit Sial, Ankita Lokhande, we all are part of Savarkar's team, and even Arvind Krishnan, jo DOP hain. Okay, everybody, like, there's been struggle, and कुछ अच्छा होगा, क्योंकि काम हमने अच्छा किया है. ये हमको पता है, और मैं ये अपने राइटिंग के बारे में नहीं कर रहा हूँ, मैं सबकी बात कर रहा हूँ. What lovely direction, what lovely performances, it has worked for us. So that's why, no regrets.
Sir, I was very curious about this personal question which I had. So my exams were going on and I wanted to pre-book the tickets in advance. But when I was searching through it, the advance booking was not at all available. I kept on searching. So why was it so?
Okay. Not actually not my position to speak too much about it, but since I was involved directly, I will say some things. I will learn from Gandhiji and be politically correct. Okay, because if I'm speaking not on my channel but on your channel, so I don't want to be too Savarkar and start naming people too much. But here's the deal. The tickets advance booking happens through Book My Show or any other portal. For that, you need censor certificate. Without censor certificate, advance booking does not start. And for a movie releasing on Friday morning and some even pre-booking shows on Thursday night, we received the censor certificate on Thursday afternoon at 2:30, and the Marathi version received the certificate 1 week later. Not blaming anybody, nor am I accusing or stating. I'm sharing my thoughts. Sometimes it almost felt like, and I could be wrong, and I'm sure I'm wrong, but it almost felt like that there was a intentional scenario that, okay, we will see. तुमको release करनी है. And last 3 days, I mean, I normally writers, researchers are not even a part of this. When I was involved in I was doing research for, मैं अटल हूँ also, but I didn't even know कब क्या हुआ, सब वो manage हो गया था. For this particular movie, 3 days I spent at CBFC because the screening happened. Normally what happens, some people watch it, okay, they ask questions. If it's a problem, it goes for review. If no problem, they ask इन चीज़ों का हिस्टोरिकल में रेफरेंस चाहिए, रेफरेंस दे दो, एंड उसके बाद सर्टिफिकेट मिल जाता है वंस थिंग्स आर डन. सो हियर इन फ्राइडे स्क्रीनिंग हुई, उसके बाद एंड दे लाइक्ड इट. दे बोथ रणदीप एंड आई हैड गॉन फॉर दैट. So Randeep had taken me along so that if they have research-based questions, I'll answer. So they asked questions, we answered them. They said we'll just put it all on paper and then we'll give it to you. Then you respond and then and they said the CEO was there and she said ki, yep, okay, US certification will happen and all. We were so happy because if by Monday also we thought we'll get it, so then Tuesday we'll open advance booking, sab ho jayega. Monday nothing happened. Sunday we replied. Saturday the questions came. Sunday we uploaded all the answers. Monday full day shanti. Tuesday full day shanti. Post office hours Tuesday they say that your answers are correct but format is wrong. This they realized on Tuesday night, evening. Then Wednesday we went. Then we were there entire day trying to understand. Okay, now why this? And it was almost like I felt like I was in Pankaj Kapoor's office in a way. But I met some wonderful people there. That is what matters. And I mean, I'll take one lady's name clearly, Lakshmi. The name. She was so helpful, and she works in the office of the RO, regional officer, Mr. Saeed Rahib Hashmi. And she was so helpful, and even he was helpful. सब लोग helpful थे. मैं किसी को कुछ accuse नहीं कर रहा हूँ, पर magically हमारा census certificate काफ़ी delay हो गया. और वो करते करते तब वेडनेसडे को नहीं मिला. वेडनेसडे शाम को कहा कि भाई कल होगा, और तब थर्सडे सुबह से मैं बैठा रहा. वी वर देयर. आई एम लाइक अगेन आई डिडंट हैव टू. रणदीप इज सेइंग ब्रदर तू क्या कर रहा है वहाँ पर. आई एम लाइक नहीं, नाउ आई एम फीलिंग रिस्पॉन्सिबल दैट आई सेड लाइक यू नो रणदीप लिटरली आई हैड अ like you know Randeep literally had given me an authority paper signed from him that if there's anything required I can sign, do that. But no one did anything, but somehow our censor certificate got delayed. And then after that we said अब मराठी दे दो, साइमल्टेनियस है. सो सेड नहीं आप पूरा सैटरडे को, अब फ्राइडे को, उसके बाद लॉन्ग वीकेंड है होली का, तो तब एवरीबडी हैज़ गॉन, सो वी डोंट हैव मेंबर्स. And then members didn't come on Tuesday also. Then finally Wednesday, and then again Thursday we got a certificate for a Friday release. So again no advance booking for Marathi show either. That also Marathi got 1 week delayed. So nobody did anything, but censor delay ho gaya. That's why you couldn't get tickets.
No, God, that scenario.
But remember, I'm saying nobody did anything wrong. Okay, everybody was doing their best, I'm sure. I'm wrong in interpreting this, but for some weird reason our censor certificate got delayed.
Okay. Lastly, sir, one last question. So what are your upcoming plans now
Oh.
that Savarkar has been released. So
You
now,
know, writing Savarkar feels like how in video game we have achievement unlocked. Like, you know, now you have the next level. You know,
okay.
I mean, we and even Randeep would say the same thing, and in fact, even other actors, we've learned so much. Just, I mean, there are scenes which are not even emotional, but while writing, I would just cry. I'll tell you the scene since you've seen the film. You know, there's a scene where when they reach him with Ayyar and Harnam Singh, they reach India House, and after welcome to the home of revolution, and Shamji Verma takes him inside, and Madam Kama introduces him to everybody.
Right.
It took me a while to write that scene because I kept on getting emotional. You know, because this scene was written before casting, so I didn't even have faces to place there. All I knew is that Randeep Hooda is playing Savarkar at that time when I wrote this scene. Every time I'm typing a name, he says, "Main Senapati Bapat, ye Hardayal," and I'm not just saying Hardayal. Suddenly in my head I'm saying Gadar Party. Oh my God! They're like, I'm saying like Senapati Bapat. They're like, okay, Rana. Madam Kama, the other woman who deserves a biopic because so much work she has done. And I was so overwhelmed that, oh my God, right now in this one room, what level of, I mean, this room created freedom in so many ways. And then Madanlal Dhingra comes. Madanlal Dhingra is not just a simple character. That man was something else. The way he went, what he did for the country, the way. Let me tell you one thing, that dialogue that you would have heard Mrinal say, he's done a beautiful job saying that when he says that if Germany was to occupy your country,
Right.
that's not me writing a dialogue. This is actually from the final speech of Madanlal Dhingra, word by word. We have those dialogues are by Madanlal Dhingra. He literally, think what level, what madness, what junoon, what feelings for the country it would take for somebody to stand knowing that I'm going to get hanged, but his last sentences are, "This is who I am." So I used to cry, so it's like it becomes like this. I feel as if something has changed inside. So now moving forward, yeah, there are, films I will not be able to say because they are not announced yet. Okay, but there is a project that I'm working on. OTT I can say because it is indirectly announced as that. I'm next working on it's a very large scale production of a mini series, a 16 episode series on Adi Shankaracharya. And why I'm so excited about that is that I've been given a free rein to write in a way where it's 80% in Hindi and 20% in Sanskrit. And the way how people speak in Spanish, they have subtitles. So I'm getting to write Sanskrit dialogues, and it will be the first of its kind where subtitles will come. So it's in Hindi, but important aspect is in that way. It's about his lifestyle entirely because we owe so much to him, and people don't even know about Adi Shankaracharya. And lots of things are there. I'm writing autobiography of, or like working with him of Mr. Virendra Sehwag. So, and then that will also have its own life and visual medium, but right now I'm working on that. So lots of stuff is happening that way. But like I told you in an earlier question of yours, that my life makes no sense in a linear way; it makes sense in hindsight. So the same will happen in future also, I'm sure. All that I will do is that I will continue writing what's making me feel happy, and as I had learned, something that I will think 5 years later, would I feel proud of this work? Would I be happy? I'll continue to do that. And like in words of Madanlal Dhingra, that's who I am. That's who I am.
Thank you so much, sir. It has actually been a very insightful conversation. I literally got goosebumps multiple times during the entire course of our conversation.
Thank you, Soumya, for all these lovely questions, and listening to all this. I'm especially happy when you said that you felt that there is more history to be read by youngster, because that is true. And I will just say one thing to the audience is that there is still time. आप सभी लोग please theatre में जाइए, film देखिए. Please go to the theatre, watch the film. It's a different experience. It's not. Don't do it for us or something, but do it for the story of Swatantrya Veer Savarkar, so the history doesn't get killed. Because right now it's not history, right now it's present, and the responsibility is to you.
Thank you so much to all our viewers of JK Now. Please like, share and subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much.